The mahogany-paneled law office felt suffocating as Mr. Davidson, Grandpa's attorney for 40 years, prepared to read the will. My relatives perched on leather chairs like vultures, their designer outfits and jewelry competing for attention. "Let's start with the major assets," Aunt Susan announced, already mentally spending her share. Her children, my cousins Mark and Jennifer, nodded eagerly. I sat quietly in the corner, still grieving the only person who'd ever truly believed in me. While they'd all been fighting over Grandpa's attention with fancy careers and material success, I'd spent every Sunday afternoon with him, listening to his stories about building his medical empire from nothing. "Very well," Mr. Davidson adjusted his glasses. "The Peterson Medical Center shares will be divided as follows." The next hour was a parade of assets being distributed. Aunt Susan received the Hamptons house, Uncle Robert got the yacht, and my cousins split the luxury car collection. Each announcement was met with satisfied smirks and calculating glances at their phones to check values. "And finally," Mr. Davidson paused, "to my grandson Daniel, I leave the contents of safety deposit box 247 at First National Bank." The room erupted in poorly concealed laughter. "An empty box?" Mark snickered. "Sounds about right for the family disappointment." Jennifer twirled her Cartier bracelet. "Well, Danny always was Grandpa's charity case. Remember when he chose to work at that free clinic instead of joining the hospital board?" Now, Aunt Susan's voice dripped false sympathy. "I'm sure there's something in that box. Maybe some old photos." She barely contained her smirk. Uncle Robert checked his Rolex. "Can we wrap this up? I have a board meeting at 3. Mr. Davidson handed me a small golden key. "The bank is across the street, Mr. Peterson. Would you like to check the contents now?" "Oh yes," Mark stood up. "Let's all go see Danny's grand inheritance. I could use a good laugh before my yacht shopping appointment." I clutched the key, remembering Grandpa's last words to me. "Sometimes the smallest key opens the biggest door, Danny. Remember everything I taught you about what really matters in medicine." The family paraded across the street to First National Bank, their Louis Vuitton shoes clicking on marble floors. The bank manager recognized Aunt Susan from charity galas and quickly ushered us to the vault. "Box 247, he announced, sliding the metal container onto a private table. "Moment of truth," Jennifer stage whispered. "Maybe it's filled with band-aids from his little clinic." I inserted the key, aware of the smartphones already raised to capture my disappointment. The lock clicked open. "Well," Aunt Susan leaned forward. "Show us this magnificent inheritance." Inside lay a single manila envelope, sealed with Grandpa's personal stamp. Mark immediately burst out laughing. "An envelope? Even better than we thought. Maybe it's a bus pass to get to his charity work." I carefully broke the seal, my fingers steady despite their mocking. Grandpa had taught me that patience and precision were the most valuable traits in both medicine and life. "Do tell us what words of wisdom the old man left you," Uncle Robert said, already turning to leave. "Some of us have real business to attend to." I began reading the contents silently, my eyes widening with each line. The laughter around me slowly faded as they noticed my expression. "What?" Jennifer demanded. "What could possibly be in that envelope?" I looked up at my smugly successful relatives, Grandpa's voice echoing in my memory. "The true value of medicine isn't in fancy hospital wings or charity galas. It's in who controls the power to heal." "Well," Aunt Susan snapped. "Don't keep us in suspense about your precious envelope." I carefully laid out the documents on the table, watching their faces as understanding slowly dawned. The papers were ownership deeds, contracts, and shares, but not just any shares. Mr. Davidson, who had followed us to the bank, cleared his throat. "Perhaps I should explain the full implications of these documents." "These documents," Mr. Davidson began, his voice carrying the weight of 40 years of legal expertise, "represent controlling interest in Peterson Medical Holdings, the parent company of every major hospital, clinic, and medical research facility in the metropolitan area." Aunt Susan grabbed the edge of the table, her perfectly manicured nails digging into the wood. That's impossible. The board controls those shares." "No," I said quietly, laying out each document methodically. "Grandpa controlled those shares through a complex series of holding companies. Companies that, according to these papers, now belong to me. Mark's face had lost its smug expression. But the hospital board, Dad's position, was always at the pleasure of the majority shareholder, Mr. Davidson explained. Your grandfather maintained public ownership of only 10% of the company. The remaining controlling interest was held through these private entities. Jennifer's phone slipped from her trembling fingers. The Peterson Medical Center is just one part of it, I continued, finding my voice growing stronger. The research facilities, the pharmaceutical development division, the specialized clinics, the medical school. I spread out more papers. I own controlling interest in all of them. Uncle Robert lunged forward, grabbing one of the documents. This can't be legal. I'm on the board. We would have known. Actually, Mr. Davidson pulled out his tablet. If you check the latest SEC filings, you'll see the ownership transfer was processed at 9 a.m. this morning. It's all perfectly legal and binding. The bank manager, who had been watching with professional restraint, suddenly straightened. Sir, shall I arrange for the executive banking team to meet with you? That won't be necessary just yet, I replied, remembering Grandpa's lessons about maintaining composure in crucial moments. Aunt Susan had found her voice, though it quivered with barely contained rage. But why you? You work at that worthless free clinic. You've never shown any business acumen. I turned to her slowly. You mean the free clinic where I've been implementing an innovative healthcare delivery system that reduces costs by 60% while improving patient outcomes? The model that the National Health Institute just recommended for nationwide adoption. What? Mark whispered. Or perhaps you meant the worthless research I've been conducting there on accessible healthcare solutions. The same research that just received a $500 million grant from the Gates Foundation. Jennifer had sunk into a chair, her designer dress crumpling. But you never came to the board meetings. Because I was busy learning medicine from the ground up, just like Grandpa did. While you were all fighting over hospital wings named after yourselves, I was learning every aspect of healthcare delivery, from janitor to surgeon. Mr. Davidson nodded approvingly. Your grandfather was quite impressed with your holistic approach to understanding the healthcare system. He said you reminded him of himself at your age. But the company value. Uncle Robert was frantically calculating on his phone. These holdings, they're worth $12.4 billion as of this morning's market evaluation, I supplied. Though with the implementation of my new healthcare delivery system and the pending patents from my research, analysts project that to double within 18 months. The bank manager cleared his throat. Sir, there are also several sealed envelopes in the box containing what appear to be resignation letters. Ah yes, I picked them up. Pre-signed resignations from every board member, to be activated at my discretion. Grandpa was nothing if not thorough. Aunt Susan swayed slightly. The annual charity gala next week. I'm the chairwoman. Was the chairwoman, I corrected gently. I'll be announcing a new direction for our charitable initiatives. One that focuses on actually helping people rather than social prestige. Mark's face had turned an alarming shade of pale. The hospital expansion project I'm managing is cancelled, I confirmed. Those resources will be redirected to upgrading our community clinics and research facilities. Jennifer made a small choking sound. But, what about the family legacy? I gathered the documents carefully, remembering Grandpa's words about responsibility and purpose. The legacy will be stronger than ever. It's just returning to its original mission. Healing people, not enriching shareholders. The bank manager stepped forward. Sir, your grandfather left one more item. He produced a small box from inside the safety deposit box. Inside was Grandpa's old stethoscope, the one he'd used when he opened his first clinic 50 years ago. Attached was a note. Remember, Danny, hear the heart before you count the money. I looked up at my shell-shocked relatives, their world of privilege and pretense crumbling around them. Mr. Davidson, I believe we have some paperwork to complete. And then I have patients to see at the clinic. 3 months after the will reading, I sat in what used to be Uncle Robert's office, now transformed into a modern command center for our healthcare revolution. Gone were the ostentatious oil paintings and mahogany furniture, replaced by interactive medical displays and real-time patient care metrics. A gentle knock interrupted my review of the latest community health initiative. Dr. Peterson? Your family is here for the quarterly shareholders meeting. Thank you, Sarah. Let's not keep them waiting. They filed into the conference room like chastened children, a far cry from their previous imperious attitudes. Aunt Susan's designer suit seemed somehow muted, Mark's confidence had deflated to near invisibility, and Jennifer's social media influence had taken a dramatic turn from luxury hospital heiress to unfollowed. Before we begin, I announced, activating the holographic display, let's review our first quarter under new management. The numbers floated in the air. Patient satisfaction up 78%. Treatment costs down 45%. Research grant funding increased by $890 million. Staff turnover reduced by 82%. As you can see, I continued, our shift from profit-centered to patient-centered care has yielded remarkable results. Uncle Robert shifted uncomfortably. But the profit margins have increased by 32%. I completed his sentence. Turns out, treating patients effectively and efficiently is actually good for business. Who you? Aunt Susan cleared her throat. About the annual gala. Has been replaced by community health fairs, I said firmly. The $2 million we used to spend on caviar and champagne now funds preventive care programs in underserved neighborhoods. But the social connections, Jennifer protested weakly, are stronger than ever. The Gates Foundation, WHO, and CDC have all partnered with us for global health initiatives. Last week, I had dinner with Dr. Fauci to discuss our pandemic preparedness protocols. Mark flipped frantically through the quarterly report. The new board members are actually medical professionals, I nodded. Shocking concept, I know. Dr. Chin from Johns Hopkins, Dr. Patel from Mayo Clinic, and Dr. Rodriguez from Stanford. People who understand both medicine and management. The holographic display shifted to show our new organizational structure. The hierarchy was flatter, more efficient, with direct lines of communication between medical staff and administration. You'll notice, I continued, that our administrative costs have dropped by 60% since removing redundant executive positions. I paused meaningfully, including those previously held by family members. Aunt Susan dabbed at her eyes with a significantly less expensive handkerchief than she used to carry. The country club membership has been terminated. We've converted the hospital's private golf course into a rehabilitation center and community garden. The patients seem to prefer growing their own food to watching executives play golf. But the hospital's reputation, Uncle Robert began, has never been better, I interrupted, pulling up the latest headlines. Asterisk, Peterson Medical Revolution. How Patient-First Care Changed Healthcare. Asterisk, Free Clinic Model Goes Global. Who Adopts Peterson Protocol. Asterisk, Healthcare Hero. Young Seo transforms billion-dollar empire into public health pioneer. 3 months after the will reading, I sat in Uncle Robert's old office. It was now a modern center for healthcare reform. The fancy paintings and furniture were gone. Only Grandpa's old stethoscope hung on the wall. Dr. Peterson, your family is here for the shareholder meeting, said my assistant Sarah. Tell the WHO director I'll call back in an hour. Let's start with family. They walked in like kids in trouble. Aunt Susan's suit was less flashy. Mark looked nervous. Jennifer's social media fame had faded. Uncle Robert sat quietly among the minority shareholders. Let's review the first quarter, I said, showing data in holograms. Patient satisfaction up 78%. Treatment costs down 45%. Research funding up $890 million. Staff turnover down 82%. Emergency response times improved 40%. Community health better everywhere. Our patient-focused care works, I said. It's now a global model. Uncle Robert frowned. What about profits? They've grown 32%, I said. Good care is good business. Our stock doubled. Mark muttered. You cut premium services. No, I said. Premium care is for everyone now. The executive floor, pediatric care, private suites, family rooms. Aunt Susan asked about the gala. It's gone. We fund health fairs now. Last fair helped 5,000 people and found 200 early illnesses. Jennifer complained about social connections. They're stronger than ever, I said. We work with Gates Foundation, WHO, CDC. I met with Dr. Fauci and will meet the UN Secretary General soon. Mark looked at the board changes. They're medical experts now, I said. Doctors and health advocates run the company, not executives. Admin costs dropped 60%. Family exec roles are gone. Aunt Susan cried over the country club membership. It's ended. The golf course is now a rehab and garden. Uncle Robert worried about reputation. It's better than ever, I said, showing headlines praising our work. Sarah gave more news. You're nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Time wants you for Person of the Year. Jennifer dropped her purse, stunned. Nobel Prize. For making healthcare accessible, I said. Our local clinics cut ER visits by 60%. Preventive care works. Mark asked about pharma. We shifted to cures, not just maintenance drugs. We've made breakthroughs in rare diseases. Uncle Robert asked about shareholders. They're happy. Our stock beats all others. Aunt Susan whispered about family legacy. It's exactly what Grandpa wanted, I said, touching his stethoscope. He built this to heal people, not fund luxury. The room fell silent. I stood up. Excuse me, I have patients to see. Sarah will show you the new pediatric wing built with saved bonus money. As they left, Jennifer paused by patient thank you letters. Danny, she said softly, using my childhood name. Grandpa would be proud. I smiled. He would. But not of me, of what the hospital became. Sunlight filled the hospital. Patients walked in the healing garden. Doctors worked efficiently without extra bureaucracy. Researchers made new treatments without profit pressure. People were healed because of need, not wealth. Grandpa's stethoscope caught the light. A reminder that small keys can open big doors, especially ones leading to real change. The clinking of expensive wine glasses filled the air at Le Jardin, my brother David's favorite restaurant for showing off his wealth. I sat at the far end of the table, watching him hold court among our family members, his Rolex catching the light with every grandiose gesture. And then, he boomed, I closed the Henderson deal right there in my corner office. 47th floor, overlooking the entire city. He turned his attention to me, his smile dripping with false concern. How's your workspace, Sarah? Still in that tiny office at the university? Our parents exchanged knowing looks. David had always been their golden child, Harvard MBA, fast-tracked to partnership at Sterling and Brooks Investment, marriage to Jessica, the perfect socialite wife. Meanwhile, I'd chosen academia, much to their perpetual disappointment. The office suits my needs, I replied quietly, taking a sip of water. What David didn't know was that my tiny office was just for show. My real work happened in the executive suite of the business school's new wing, the one named after me, though I'd donated anonymously. Oh, come on, David laughed, his voice carrying across the restaurant. It's barely bigger than a closet. Jessica, darling, remember when you visited Sarah's office last year? Didn't you say it reminded you of your household staff's break room? Jessica, immaculate in her Chanel suit, tittered politely. Well, it was cozy. She checked her perfect manicure, a nervous habit I'd noticed whenever she felt uncomfortable. But speaking of business school, I have some exciting news. I've decided to pursue my MBA. The table erupted in congratulations. David beamed proudly. That's right. My brilliant wife got accepted into Riverside Business School's executive program. Top ranked in the country. I carefully set down my fork, keeping my face neutral. Riverside Business School. My business school. Where I wasn't just a professor, but the youngest department head in the school's history. Where my research had revolutionized modern business theory. Where I'd quietly amassed a fortune through strategic investments and consulting, all while maintaining my humble professor facade. How wonderful, our mother gushed. When do you start, dear? Tonight, actually. Jessica smiled. My first class is Advanced Business Strategy at 7 p.m. I'm a bit nervous. They say the professor is quite demanding. Dr. Mitchell or something. I checked my watch, 6:15 p.m. Perfect timing. Dr. Mitchell? David scoffed. Probably some dusty old academic who's never seen the inside of a real boardroom. Jessica, darling, just remember what I've taught you about actual business. Our father nodded sagely. David's right. Theory is one thing, but real business happens in corner offices, not classrooms. I stood up, smoothing my deliberately modest blazer. "Excuse me, I have a prior commitment this evening." "Oh." David smirked. "Papers to grade in your tiny office?" "Something like that," I smiled, dropping enough cash to cover my portion of the bill. "Jessica, don't be late for class. First impressions matter." She nodded absently, already absorbed in her phone. David launched into another story about his latest deal, and our parents leaned in eagerly. None of them noticed me leaving, just as none of them had noticed my quiet accumulation of power over the years. In my car, a modest Toyota I drove to maintain appearances, I changed into my teaching outfit. A perfectly tailored Armani suit hidden under an unassuming cardigan. My tiny office contained a complete wardrobe for occasions like this. The drive to Riverside took 15 minutes. I entered through the faculty entrance, nodding to security guards who straightened respectfully as I passed. The Mitchell School of Business, named after my grandmother, who'd secretly funded my education against my parents' wishes, gleamed with state-of-the-art technology and modern architecture. In my executive suite, I reviewed the class roster one final time. Jessica Brooks, front and center on the list. My secretary knocked softly. "Dr. Mitchell? The board members would like to confirm tomorrow's endowment meeting. And the Goldman Sachs partners are still waiting for your decision on their consulting offer. Tell the board I'll be there." As for Goldman, I smiled, thinking of David's endless bragging about his finance connections. "Let them wait another week. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a class to teach." I gathered my materials and headed to Lecture Hall A, the same hall where I'd first dreamed of becoming more than just David's quiet sister. Students were already filing in, their excited chatter filling the space. At precisely 6:55 p.m., Jessica rushed in, looking flustered but immaculate. She took a seat in the front row, smoothing her designer skirt and arranging her luxury leather notebook just so. At 7 p.m. sharp, I entered through the side door, letting my cardigan slip just enough to reveal the Armani beneath. The room fell silent. "Good evening," I said clearly, watching Jessica's eyes widen in recognition. "Welcome to Advanced Business Strategy. I'm Dr. Sarah Mitchell, department head and your professor for this semester." Jessica's perfect French manicure clattered against her desk as her phone slipped from her fingers. The color drained from Jessica's perfectly made-up face as I began my opening lecture. Her manicured hands trembled as she tried to take notes, her Mont Blanc pen making uncharacteristically messy scrawls across her premium leather notebook. "Business strategy isn't about corner offices or closing deals over expensive wines," I stated, deliberately echoing David's earlier boasts. "It's about understanding market dynamics, recognizing patterns, and most importantly," I paused, meeting Jessica's shocked gaze, knowing that true power often operates quietly behind the scenes. For the next 2 hours, I commanded the lecture hall with the authority that came from years of success both in academia and in the business world. My consulting firm, Mitchell Strategy Group, had quietly shaped policies for Fortune 500 companies. My investment portfolio, managed through a series of discrete holding companies, had outperformed most hedge funds. All while my family thought I was just grading papers in my tiny office. As I discussed case studies, I could see Jessica's professional composure cracking. Every time I mentioned a major corporation or business leader, her expression flickered. She knew these were clients who paid astronomical fees for my advice. Companies where her husband was merely a mid-level partner. "For your first assignment," I announced near the end of class, "you'll analyze the Henderson merger." Jessica's head snapped up. The Henderson deal, David's supposed crowning achievement. "You'll find that while the public face of the merger was handled by Sterling and Brooks Investment, the actual strategy was developed by an anonymous consulting firm." I allowed myself a small smile. The same firm that has shaped 7 of the decade's largest corporate restructurings. My phone buzzed discreetly, another message from Goldman Sachs, probably increasing their consulting offer again. I ignored it, just as I'd ignored their previous attempts to discover the identity behind Mitchell Strategy Group's success. "Class dismissed," I announced. "Except for Mrs. Brooks. A word, please." The other students filed out, several shooting curious glances at Jessica, who remained frozen in her seat. When the hall emptied, she finally spoke. "Sarah, I had no idea." Clearly. I sat on the edge of my desk, letting her see the full effect of my carefully concealed power suit. "Tell me, Jessica, Does my office still remind you of your staff's break room? She flushed deep red. About that, I was just following David's lead? Yes, I noticed. Just as I've noticed every snide comment, every dismissive gesture, every time my brother used me as a cautionary tale about choosing the wrong career path. But she gestured helplessly at the lecture hall, the building that bore my family name, the subtle signals of wealth and influence I no longer bothered to hide from her. You're Dr. Mitchell. The Dr. Mitchell. David says even his firm's CEO can't get a meeting with you. Ironic, isn't it? I smiled. While David was bragging about his corner office, I was deciding whether his firm would survive the next market shift. That Henderson deal he's so proud of? I designed it. The strategy he presented as his own? My work. Jessica's professional mask cracked completely. Oh God. The birthday party last month, when David mocked your shabby academic's car. While I was deciding whether to accept his firm's desperate plea for consultation. Yes, that was particularly amusing. I stood gathering my materials. Now about your position in this class. Please, she whispered, I can withdraw. Take another section. Anything. Withdraw? Why would I want that? No, Jessica, you're exactly where you need to be. In fact, I insist you stay. Consider it an educational opportunity. For both you and David. Her hands twisted nervously in her designer skirt. You're going to tell him? Tell him? Oh, that would be too direct. Instead, I'm going to let him discover it slowly, piece by piece. Starting with your first assignment, a detailed analysis of how his brilliant Henderson strategy was actually developed. I walked to the door, then turned back. Oh, and Jessica, do try to maintain better composure in future classes. In real business, as you're about to learn, emotional control is everything. As I walked through the halls of my building, passing the discreet plaques acknowledging my anonymous donations, I smiled thinking about the dinner conversation that awaited Jessica and David tonight. My phone buzzed again, not Goldman Sachs this time, but my investment manager. Dr. Mitchell, Sterling & Brooks stock dropped 15% on rumors about the Henderson strategy leak. Should we proceed with the acquisition plan? I thought about David's smug face at dinner, his casual cruelty masked as familial teasing. Yes, I replied. Proceed as discussed. And make sure the press release emphasizes the role of academic expertise in the takeover. The following weeks unfolded like a perfectly orchestrated symphony of revelation. I watched from my executive suite as David's carefully constructed world began to unravel, one thread at a time. Jessica's first paper on the Henderson deal landed on my desk with trembling observations about the strategic similarities between the official documentation and Mitchell Strategy Group's known methodologies. I gave her an A, along with a detailed commentary that I knew would find its way to David's attention. Dr. Mitchell, my secretary interrupted my grading. Mr. Brooks from Sterling & Brooks is here. Without an appointment. Again. I glanced at my surveillance monitor, seeing David pacing in the waiting area, his usual confident demeanor notably absent. His Armani suit looked slightly rumpled, unusual for someone so obsessed with appearances. Send him in, I said, carefully arranging myself behind my desk, not the small office he knew about, but my true workspace, with its floor-to-ceiling windows and views of the city that dwarfed his 47th floor perspective. David burst in, then stopped short, his eyes widening as he took in the space. The elegant furnishings, the wall of awards, and most importantly, the familiar strategy diagrams from his Henderson presentation displayed on my interactive screens. Sarah. His voice cracked slightly. What is all this? This. I gestured around. This is my tiny office, David. At least one of them. Would you like to see the others? The consulting firm headquarters, perhaps? Or maybe my investment group's main operations center. He sank into one of my visitor chairs without being invited, a first. Jessica's been acting strange, keeping her class materials hidden. Then I saw her paper. The Henderson analysis. Ah yes, your wife is quite perceptive when she's not playing the role of corporate trophy, I noted, pulling up his firm's latest stock charts on my screens. She quickly identified the strategic patterns. Tell me, did you ever wonder who actually designed that deal you're so proud of? His face paled. The consulting firm, the anonymous strategist everyone's been trying to identify. That was you? Is me, I corrected. Present tense. Just as I'm the one deciding whether to approve Goldman Sachs' latest attempt to acquire your struggling firm. Struggling. He straightened defensively. We're one of the top. You were, I cut him off, displaying more charts. Until rumors started circulating about the true origin of your strategies. Amazing how quickly clients lose confidence when they realize their star performer has been taking credit for someone else's work. David's hands gripped the armrests. Why didn't you ever say anything? All those dinners, all those times you mocked my career, belittled my choices, used me as an example of failure. I stood walking to the window. You gave me the perfect cover, David. While you were bragging about corner offices, I was building an empire. While you were flaunting your wealth, I was multiplying mine in ways you can't imagine. The Mitchell School of Business, he whispered, realization dawning. The anonymous donor. Grandmother would have appreciated the irony, I smiled. She always said true power doesn't need to announce itself. Speaking of announcements, have you seen today's financial news? I pulled up the breaking headlines. Mitchell Strategy Group acquires controlling interest in Sterling & Brooks, academic excellence meets corporate finance. David's face went from pale to ashen. You bought my firm? Your former firm, I corrected. The board voted this morning. They seemed quite eager to accept my offer, especially after reviewing the origin of your supposed strategic innovations. He stood up shakily. Sir, please. We're family. Family. I raised an eyebrow. Like when you told the Henderson Group not to waste time talking to that academic sister of yours. Or when you advised Jessica to network with actual business people instead of her dusty professor? My phone buzzed, Jessica's name appearing on the screen. Ah, perfect timing. Your wife has just submitted her latest assignment, a fascinating analysis of hostile takeovers disguised as friendly acquisitions. She's showing remarkable insight into the subject. David ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, disrupting it for the first time I could remember. What do you want? Money? A public apology? Want? I laughed softly. David, you still don't understand. I don't want anything from you. I already have everything, including your company, your reputation, and your wife's genuine respect. Though I must admit, watching you learn the truth has been intellectually satisfying. My secretary appeared at the door. Dr. Mitchell, the board of Sterling & Brooks is ready for your first address as majority owner. Thank you. I turned to David. You can see yourself out. Oh, and don't worry about your position with the firm. I'm sure we can find you a small office somewhere. After all, isn't that where all the real work happens? He left without another word, his expensive shoes scuffing slightly on my polished floors. Through my security cameras, I watched him pass Jessica in the hallway. She was heading to my advanced seminar on corporate acquisitions, clutching a case study that I knew detailed his company's downfall. My phone buzzed again, Goldman Sachs making another desperate attempt to partner with Mitchell Strategy Group. I declined the call, instead pulling up the latest draft of my new book, Silent Success: How Quiet Power Outmaneuvers Loud Privilege. The dedication page read, "To my brother who taught me that the smallest offices often contain the biggest opportunities." In the distance I could see David's prized corner office building. By tomorrow his name would be removed from the door. By next week the entire firm would be restructured under my leadership. And at the next family dinner, when they asked about my tiny university office, I would simply smile and say it suits my needs perfectly. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't in showing your power, but in letting others discover it themselves, one devastating revelation at a time. After all, as I taught in my very first lesson, the lesson Jessica now understood all too well, true power operates quietly behind the scenes, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal itself. And in the end, my brother's mockery had given me something priceless. The satisfaction of watching him learn in the most painful way possible, that sometimes the smallest office contains the biggest surprises. I parked my 2012 Toyota Camry between my cousin Victoria's Bentley and my brother Marcus's Ferrari, already knowing what was coming. The annual Thompson family reunion was more of a wealth competition than a family gathering, and I'd been cast as the perpetual loser. Straightening my simple black dress, a Chanel original that they'd assume was from a department store, I grabbed the bottle of wine I'd brought. A $5,000 Chateau Latour, not that anyone would notice. They'd already decided everything about me based on my car. Olivia. My mother's voice carried across the driveway of her sprawling Hampton estate. You're late. And, oh, you're still driving that car. I forced a smile. Hello, Mother. Inside, the usual suspects were already assembled. Victoria showing off her latest diamond bracelet to our cousin Emma. Marcus loudly discussing his hedge fund's recent success. And Aunt Patricia critiquing everyone's life choices while sipping expensive champagne. Still slumming it at that startup job? Marcus called out, using the nickname I hated. If he only knew that my startup job was actually my own company, Thompson Tech Solutions, currently valued at $3.2 billion. But they didn't need to know that. Not yet. The car still running okay? Victoria added with fake concern. I know a great dealer if you're finally ready to upgrade. Though you might need to check your credit score first. I set my wine bottle on the kitchen counter, watching as my mother immediately replaced it with something from her own collection. My $5,000 bottle would probably end up in her cooking. Olivia is just practical, my mother said diplomatically. Not everyone needs luxury items to be happy. The way she said practical made it sound like a terminal illness. I checked my phone, confirming what I already knew. My company's stock had jumped another 20% today after our latest acquisition. The transaction that would shock my entire family was nearly complete. Did you hear about Victoria's promotion? My father jumped in. Senior VP at Goldman Sachs. And Marcus just closed a $100 million deal for his fund. That's wonderful, I said, taking a seat at the massive dining table. Congratulations. Emma leaned forward, her designer dress probably worth more than what they thought I made in a month. Olivia dear, I know a great financial advisor. You really should start thinking about your future. My future. I suppressed a smile, thinking about the meeting I'd had this morning with my board of directors. We just acquired our biggest competitor for $4.1 billion. A deal I'd orchestrated while my family thought I was struggling at some entry-level tech job. Thanks, Emma. I'll think about it. The dinner proceeded as usual. Victoria detailed her recent trip to the Maldives. Marcus bragged about his new vacation home in Aspen. My mother expertly directed the conversation to highlight everyone's successes while glossing over my apparent lack thereof. Olivia is doing her best, she'd say whenever anyone asked about me. She's always been different. Different because I'd chosen to build something from scratch instead of following their prescribed path of investment banking or law. Because I'd lived modestly while secretly growing my company into a tech giant. Because I'd never felt the need to prove my worth through designer labels and luxury cars. At least tell me you're dating someone successful, Aunt Patricia prodded. You're not getting any younger, dear. I thought about Daniel, the brilliant engineer I'd been seeing for 6 months. They'd probably be shocked to learn he was worth over $500 million from his own tech ventures. But like me, he preferred keeping a low profile. Just focusing on work right now, I replied. Victoria rolled her eyes. Of course you are. Though what kind of work can you really be doing at? What's the company called again? Thompson Tech Solutions, I said quietly. Never heard of it, Marcus declared. Must be one of those little startup things that'll be gone in a year. If he'd bothered to read any financial news, he'd know that Thompson Tech Solutions was revolutionizing artificial intelligence and cloud computing. We'd been featured in Forbes twice this year alone. My phone buzzed. My assistant's name appeared on the screen. She knew not to interrupt family dinner unless it was urgent. Excuse me, I said, standing up. I need to take this. Really, Olivia? My mother frowned. It's rude to take calls at dinner. I stepped away from the table anyway, feeling their judgmental stares. Angela, what's wrong? Miss Thompson, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's an issue with the jet. The maintenance team in Dubai needs your approval for some upgrades before your flight to Singapore next week. I could feel Victoria trying to eavesdrop. The jet? She whispered to Emma. Must be her company's courier service or something. If they only knew the courier service was my personal Gulfstream G650. Little did they know this dinner was about to take a very interesting turn. The carefully constructed facade I'd maintained for years was about to crack. And the family that had dismissed me for so long was about to learn exactly who they'd been underestimating. I smiled into the phone, ready to begin the show I'd been rehearsing for years. Tell them to proceed with the upgrades, I said clearly, watching their expressions shift from dismissive to confused. And make sure the pilot files the flight plan for Singapore with a stopover in Tokyo. I have that meeting with our Japanese investors. The table had gone silent. Even Marcus had stopped mid-brag. What came next would change everything, but that was just the beginning of what I had planned for this evening. Also, Angela continued, Mr. Chin from the board wanted to confirm your availability for tomorrow's press conference about the acquisition. Yes, I'll be there, I said, deliberately raising my voice slightly. Make sure the PR team has the statement ready about our $4.1 billion purchase of Nextech Industries. I heard a wine glass shatter. Victoria's perfectly manicured hand had slipped, sending her burgundy spreading across her designer dress. Is that all, Angela? Just one more thing. Forbes wants to update your net worth for their 40 under 40 list. Should I give them the current figure or wait until after the acquisition goes public? I turned back to the table, meeting their shocked stares. Let's wait. The stock jump from today's news should be interesting. I hung up, tucking my phone away as I returned to my seat. The silence was deafening. My mother's fork hung halfway to her mouth. Marcus's face had lost its smug smile. Emma was frantically Googling on her phone, probably searching for Thompson Tech Solutions. Olivia, my father finally managed. What was that about a jet? I took another sip of wine, savoring the moment I'd been waiting for all these years. Oh, didn't I mention? I need to cut dinner short. I have a flight to catch. The silence that followed felt like it could shatter glass. Victoria was the first to recover, her wine-stained dress forgotten. You're lying, she accused, her voice shrill. This is some kind of joke. I pulled out my phone again, opening the Bloomberg app. Thompson Tech Solutions current market cap $3.2 billion. Sue, Olivia Thompson. I slid the phone across the table. Feel free to fact check. Marcus grabbed the phone, his hands actually shaking. This can't be right. You're nothing. You drive a Camry. Because I choose to, I replied calmly. Unlike some people, I don't need expensive cars to prove my worth. Emma was still frantically Googling. Oh my God, she whispered. She's telling the truth. Olivia's on Forbes 30 under 30. She's been on CNBC. There are articles about her everywhere. My mother's face had gone pale. But why didn't you tell us? All these years. Would it have mattered? I asked, thinking of all the family dinners where they talked over me, dismissed my career, treated me like their collective failure. You never asked what I actually did. You were too busy bragging about Victoria's entry-level banking job or Marcus's small hedge fund. Small. Marcus sputtered. I manage $100 million. I couldn't help but laugh. That's cute. I signed off on $100 million in bonuses last quarter alone. My father cleared his throat, his business instincts finally kicking in. Princess, perhaps we should discuss some investment opportunities now that we know about your success. No, I cut him off firmly. I'm not your princess anymore. That stopped the day you told me I was embarrassing the family by starting my own company instead of joining Goldman with Victoria. Victoria flinched at the memory. She'd been there when our father had that conversation with me, smirking as he detailed all the ways I was disappointing the Thompson name. But that's what family does, my mother protested weakly. We help each other. Really? I raised an eyebrow. Like when you helped Victoria with the down payment on her Bentley while telling me I needed to learn financial responsibility? Or when you funded Marcus's startup fund but called my business plan unrealistic? Aunt Patricia, never one to miss an opportunity, leaned forward. Darling, now that we know about your position, you simply must join the country club. I'll sponsor you myself. The same country club that rejected my application last year because my car wasn't appropriate? I smiled coldly. I bought it last month. The members just don't know yet. Another wine glass hit the table too hard. This time it was Marcus's. My phone buzzed again. A text from Daniel. Your pilot called me. Want me to bring the Aston Martin to pick you up instead of the usual car? I texted back. No, let's stick to the plan. The Camry is perfect for tonight. Olivia. Victoria's voice had taken on a syrupy sweetness I recognized from childhood. The tone she used when she wanted something. I've actually been thinking about leaving Goldman. Maybe we could discuss some opportunities at your company. You mean the little startup thing that'll be gone in a year? I quoted Marcus's earlier words. I think we're fully staffed. Emma jumped in, ever the opportunist. You know, I've always been interested in tech. Really? I interrupted. Name one coding language. She fell silent, deflated. My mother was still struggling to process everything. But your clothes, your car, your apartment are all choices, I finished for her. I could buy this house with one day's earnings. I could have any car I want, but unlike some people, I don't measure success by what I own. How much? My father asked bluntly. How much are you worth? I stood up, smoothing my off-the-rack dress that actually cost more than Victoria's car. More than everyone at this table combined. Multiple times over. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Angela. Car's ready whenever you are, Miss Thompson. The board members in Singapore are eager to start the meeting. Thank you, Angela. I'm leaving now. I turned to my stunned family. This has been illuminating, but I have a company to run. Wait. Victoria called out desperately. You can't just drop this on us and leave. Why not? You've been dropping judgments on me for years. I picked up my purse, a simple leather tote that probably cost more than Victoria's flashy designer bags. Oh, and mother, that wine you relegated to the cooking shelf? It's worth more than Marcus's monthly fund returns. As I walked toward the door, my father found his voice again. Olivia, be reasonable. We're family. We should discuss this arrangement. I turned back one last time. The time for discussion was years ago when I needed support. I paused at the threshold. No, I don't need anything from any of you. But we're blood, my mother pleaded. Blood doesn't excuse behavior, I replied. You all made your choices about how to treat me. Now you get to live with them. Outside, my faithful Camry waited. Behind me, I could hear the chaos erupting: Victoria's shrill demands, Marcus's protests, Emma's attempts to connect with me on LinkedIn from her phone. As I drove away, my mother ran out to the driveway. Olivia, please. We can start over. I didn't stop. The real show was about to begin, and tomorrow's press conference would be just the first act. The next morning, my family's attempts to contact me started in earnest. Victoria. Hey sis. Remember when I helped you with your college applications? Good times. Let's do lunch. Marcus. Liv. Got some amazing investment opportunities to discuss. Call me. Emma. LinkedIn says you're hiring. Coffee soon. Then the emails. Mother. Darling, I've been thinking about all the wonderful memories we could make together now. Father. Princess, let's discuss how to integrate your success into the family's legacy. I forwarded them all to my assistant with one instruction: add to the blocked list. At the press conference announcing the next tech acquisition, a reporter asked about my modest lifestyle despite my wealth. Success isn't about what you own, I told her. It's about what you build. The story made headlines: tech's secret billionaire, the CEO who drives a Camry. Victoria saw it and tried a new approach. I always knew you were special, sis. Remember how I used to let you borrow my clothes? I remembered. I also remembered how she told everyone I couldn't afford my own. Marcus attempted to pitch his fund to my board members, somehow getting their contact information. They sent his proposal straight to spam. My mother joined every charity board she could find, suddenly passionate about supporting young entrepreneurs. She made sure to mention her successful tech CEO daughter at every meeting. A month after the dinner, I received an invitation to the family's annual charity gala. The note read, "Special guest of honor, Olivia Thompson, tech visionary." I sent back a simple response: unable to attend, prior commitment in Singapore. I was actually in town that weekend, working from my penthouse office while they posed for photos and pretended they'd always believed in me. Victoria gave an interview to the local paper about how she'd inspired her sister's success. Marcus told anyone who would listen about our close relationship. The truth? They hadn't inspired anything except my determination to succeed despite them. Last week, Victoria lost her job at Goldman Sachs. Budget cuts. She sent me her resume with a note. Family first, right? Marcus's fund lost its biggest investor. He tried to schedule a meeting with my investment team. Emma's husband's business went under. She started posting motivational quotes about successful family connections on LinkedIn. I ignored them all. Instead, I focused on what mattered. Running my company, developing new technologies, creating jobs. The Camry still sat in my parking spot between Maseratis and Bentleys. My employees loved it. It had become a symbol of our company culture. Success without showmanship. Yesterday, I overheard two of my junior developers talking. Is it true she's a billionaire who drives a Toyota? Yeah, and she wears normal clothes and lives in a regular apartment. But why? Because she doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. They got it. My family never would. This morning, I received another dinner invitation from my mother. The note mentioned she'd finally learned to properly store fine wine. I sent back the same bottle she'd relegated to cooking, a $5,000 Chateau Latour. The note read, "For your cooking shelf. I hear it adds excellent flavor to rejection letters." My assistant appeared with urgent news. Victoria had shown up in the lobby, refusing to leave without seeing me. I watched on the security feed as she paced, clutching her designer bag. Probably her last one. "Send her up," I said. It was time for one final lesson. Victoria burst into my office, her perfect facade cracking. "You have to help me. The bank is foreclosing on my house. Marcus can't help because his fund is collapsing. Daddy's investments are tied up. You're our only hope." I looked at my sister, really looked at her, seeing the desperation behind the designer clothes and perfectly styled hair. "Do you remember what you said when I asked for a loan to start my company?" She flinched. "Olivia, that was different. You said, and I quote, 'Real success comes from hard work, not handouts.' Well, Victoria, here's your chance to prove it." "What do you mean?" I handed her a folder. "An entry-level position in our HR department. Standard salary, no special treatment. You'll have to earn every promotion just like everyone else. Entry-level." She stared at me in horror. "But I was a VP at Goldman." "And now you're unemployed," I said calmly. "Your choice. Take the job or take your resume elsewhere. Though I should warn you, most tech companies know you're my sister, and they've been warned about nepotism hires." She slumped into a chair, her expensive bag sliding to the floor. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?"